How's it going, everyone? This is From the Balcony podcast with Sonny and Sam. I'm Sonny Reganovich.
And I'm Sam Dykema, and on this podcast, we're going to be talking about anything on or off the basketball court at the college or pro level, or even across the pond in Lithuania, as long as the Ball family wants to stay over there.
And we're just two students here at Indiana University. I'm a senior, Sam's a junior. We're both sports media students here. And we're looking to get a podcast going. We're both interested in every different type of sport, but basketball seems to have the most content and the most storylines, so we figured we'd roll with that. We'll just jump right into it and debrief this past All-Star weekend. Sam, what do you think of the new format?
I mean, you obviously see that the new format works a lot better. You got players playing hard, and it wasn't almost 200 to 200 in the game. It resembled a real basketball game for the first time in a couple of years. But overall, I think it's an improvement, obviously. What were your takeaways from the weekend?
I agree completely. I mean, it was a bad game for everyone that, bet on the over, but I thoroughly enjoyed, the game. You could see everyone's different skills. You didn't have Steph Curry laying on the floor, letting Giannis Antetokounmpo dunk over him. There's defense. That last possession was absolutely electric.
The last 5 minutes were top notch. It was like a real NBA game with all-stars.
And you could tell these guys actually wanted to win. It wasn't just these guys goofing off the entire time. And, some people might say that they enjoy the All-Star game where these guys are just throwing out leads to each other to get, every other possession. And we have seen great All-Star games like that back in, 2001 with, Vince Carter, Allen Iverson, all those guys. But I don't know. I thought this was the best All-Star game of my lifetime, and I really don't think I would say anything comes close to it.
I think it's always hard in the NBA and MLB, now that they've taken the championship element out of it. I think it's hard to make an exhibition game a real game in any sense. So, there was still some messing around. I think you had guys having fun. Draymond Green for the first 2.5 quarters looked like he'd been out a little too late the night before, maybe. But overall, I thought everyone played well. And the element of drafting teams, as much as LeBron's team had this height disadvantage that was crazy, and Steph Curry had all the three-point shooting. It's because LeBron and Steph could choose their own teams, they kind of chose players that they stylistically wanted to play around them. And I think that's a big reason of why it was such a close game. They each played within a system that worked pretty well for everyone's skill set.
I agree. And that's something that you're never going to see anywhere else other than the All-Star game with this format. I don't know. I thought it was awesome. It was really fun to see. You had LeBron James and Kevin Durant guarding Steph Curry white on rice at the last possession. You'll never see that anywhere else. But for once, you really saw these players play with incentive. They had the $100,000 for the winners and $25,000 for the losers. So, and even Kyrie Irving mentioned it at the end. You could tell that they really wanted it. And he said, "I think anybody would play, with under those circumstances."
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was, for me, another fun part of it was just seeing certain matchups go head to head. A lot of the big guys. I always like seeing Embiid match up with anyone in a game, because it's what's he going to say? Is he going to get under his skin?
What's he going to do?
Yeah. So the NBA is just, I think, trying to figure out how to translate All-Star Weekend into having the success that the league's having with younger viewers. And I think the picking teams is part of it. And I think the next step that you had a lot of talk leading up to this year's is next year the draft's got to be visible. We got to know who's going first.
I agree completely. And almost everyone I talk to that's at least a little bit interested in the sport watch the All-Star game. And I can't say that it's true for any other year. Most of the people I know are I didn't watch the All-Star game or this, that, the other thing. This year, for the most part, I think most people watched it, and maybe they just watched the replays because of Fergie's,
awful national anthem.
Yeah, that was interesting. What a way to start the game! But the players themselves were, really fun to watch. To see, especially LeBron James. He could tell he was not about to lose that game. I think they're down 10 with 5 minutes to go, and he just turned it on.
Oh yeah, I was watching with a bunch of people, and it was just the whole room was just okay, everyone's kind of laughing, all right, it's gonna go over, it's exhibition game, LeBron's giving up, no, LeBron turned it on, rest of the team turned it on. Draymond, like I said, Draymond turned it on in the fourth quarter. It was playing real defense all of a sudden, and helping, and like you see him on the Warriors, and they locked down that last possession, and I forget what the run was to end the game, but I mean, they
It
came
was
back
nice.
came back in it, and then you had the last minute that was thoroughly entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely. And, for one thing that we normally see, we always see, the hometown guy or maybe one specific player pushing for that MVP. And I can't really say that's true for this year. I mean, other than LeBron. I mean, LeBron put up, 29, 10, and 8 or something like that. But other than that, I didn't really see one player just shooting it every time he got the ball or, I don't know. What do you think?
No, that was another thing where you had like real ball movement. Like guys wanted to score, but the first half, basically no one looked like they were making an individual push for it. It was pretty much team basketball.
That's very true.
I think. And then you saw like a couple guys come in the third quarter. I think LeBron obviously was the lead dog in that, as he is with everything in the league, whether it be leading your hometown team or whatever. Like it's just he leads that kind of stuff, and that's power he has. But I think you saw, I think Embiid, had he not been on the minutes restriction, it would have been something he would have loved to chase. And I think Russ being back on KD's team, it would have been something he would have liked to chase. But you never really saw them ever try to do that.
I will say I do think LeBron's team got bailed out from Steph's team shooting. It's Steph, Lowry, and James Harden. I'm not sure if they went combined. I want to say it's something like 3 for 18 from beyond the arc. And when they're not hitting, maybe it's the defense, but normally these guys can hit any shot they ever really want.
I mean, you throw the length of LeBron and KD alone out there. And KD is the defender he's turned into this year too, next to LeBron. But yeah, obviously, I think when you have that many 3-point shooters, that's the concern: is are you going to go cold? And they weren't in the first half, and then they probably were taking a little too many for the lead they had in the second half, and let those guys get back in the game.
A little side thought, I don't know if you noticed, but what do you think about Jimmy Butler not playing?
I don't know. Jimmy's going to do what he wants to do.
Jimmy does what he wants to do.
I mean, it's like you're a Bulls guy, so it's like, I don't know. I think it's like players sitting on bowl games to me in college football. It's like, if you want to sit it out, you want to sit it out. It's not really very cool for the fans, which is the whole point of the weekend. Yeah. It's like Minnesota, it's not a big market, but for those small market teams, and Minnesota, especially given they haven't probably had an all-star since KG, or guys recently, maybe Towns. He made it last year as a reserve or something, but
at that point, I think All-Star Weekend it's for the fans. They have the skills challenge, the 3-point contest, the dunk contest. If you know you're not going to play, let somebody else take your spot. I feel like, because people would love to see Jimmy play. Don't get me wrong, but there's other guys that got snubbed. That Ben Simmons.
People care about it, and I guess we were talking about the MVP thing. Is you had in the first quarter, the first half, I guess, if there was a player who made a push, it was Lillard.
Yeah.
Lillard had, I think, 15 or 18 at half, and he was a guy who was pretty vocal about being snubbed.
Yeah.
And Lillard's got the mindset that he doesn't like that. And I think he went out there to prove a little something.
Yeah,
a little something at least.
Absolutely. And I don't know. I would much rather see Ben Simmons play 8 minutes. Playing with these guys that are in their prime while he's 21 years old. I'd rather see that than Jimmy Butler just sit his butt on the bench and do nothing. I'm not that mad about it, but from a fan's perspective, especially if I'm a Jimmy Butler fan, whether I'm from Chicago area or from Minnesota, I'm going to be a little bit frustrated on that. I would want to see Ben Simmons in there if Jimmy's not going to play. But
yeah, you bring up Simmons with obviously, I think Simmons should have been an All-Star period, straight up. But I would have loved to see him play an actual All-Star game, and then you get to see him in the Rising Stars, which didn't have the seriousness that the All-Star game had, which in the past, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And I think the World USA thing going forward is still going to work. I just think that the teams didn't match up this year at all.
No.
But that was frustrating to watch. The last 5 minutes, it turned into a full court dunk contest. Yeah. And I was like, this is dumb. We don't need this at this point. So I think the NBA All-Star Weekend overall good, improved, but there's a ways to go.
I agree. There's definitely room for improvement there, just as far as being the fans to watch the games. But I think they did a great step this year with the new format they have. They gave the players an incentive to play. Yeah, I think there's room for improvement, but this year was definitely more successful than years past.
It set us well in motion to get started with a second half or what really amounts to the last third of the NBA season. What are interesting things you're looking for going forward with the second half of the season there, Sonny?
Well, I don't know. I think everyone would, traditionally talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Warriors, which, we can talk about later. But some of the things I'm looking for are individual players, is James Harden keep up? Can LeBron, who's 34 years old now, can he keep up this pace that he's on? He's playing some of the best basketball he's ever had. And also, I'm looking at the teams towards the bottom, that might be tanking, like Chicago Bulls or even the Jazz, who traded away some of their players.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's some teams that obviously made a youth movement. Orlando's one of them. Orlando, I think, Orlando or Atlanta is got to be the favorite for the number 1 seed right now.
Yeah.
Or the number 1 pick, rather, not seed. Far from that. And then I guess other things I'm looking at is I just want to see if the Wizards are going to return to what they had going in the playoffs last year. I mean, they look like they could beat the Celtics, which obviously a different Celtics team with IT and everything, but you have an interesting situation there where John Wall the past couple of weeks hasn't been necessarily happy, and Beal hasn't been necessarily incredible either.
I gotta say, I have really liked the Washington Wizards team over the past few years. Much like their fellow DC team, the Nationals, many people are just calling these teams just like phonies. They can't win in the playoffs. They have these teams that make great pushes in the regular season. They show talent. They have star players. They seem to have what it takes to make that next step, and they just can never get it going. And I would love to see the Wizards, maybe do that this year. With the Celtics making their improvements with Kyrie, and even if Gordon Hayward comes back, I've heard lots of talk about that. I don't know.
I just think there's a couple teams in the East that aren't being talked about right now that could get up in there. And then you had, obviously, you talk about, we're interested in the Cavs, obviously interested in the Celtics, and the Celtics have fallen off some they looked almost unbeatable the first couple months of the season. And then the Raptors are impressive. I don't know if they have a playoff kind of lineup, but they look good.
I will say, for the Raptors being the number 1 seed in the East, as we speak, they get no respect at all.
I mean, who would have told you that the Rockets and the Raptors were going to be our 1 seed at the All-Star?
I know, but it's crazy to me because people always keep talking about the Celtics, keep talking about the Cavs, and even the Wizards, like we just did. But no one really talks about the Raptors. No one sees them as a real threat, I feel like.
No, and I think an element of that is just not seeing the Raptors on TV. I feel like I've barely watched the Raptors too.
Yeah,
but I know when I have watched them that DeRozan looks like a whole new animal.
Yeah.
DeRozan's he's added something to his game. I think his 3-point shooter's gotten a little bit better, and he just has he's the clear alpha dog now. I think there's been a limbo between him and Lowry, but it's okay, DeRozan's the guy. We've got a young wing defender, go Hoosiers, OG Anunoby, and we got Valanciunas, who's also added a 3-point shooting to his game. They look like they might not have the depth, but they look, at least from the front five, that they can compete.
The front five is a very complete squad, and arguably, one of the best starting fives, if not the best starting five in the East. I'd take them almost over anybody. And you could say they're the second best behind the Warriors starting five. Because that's good from 1 to 5. They have
1 from 5. Yeah, you don't have a hole there because you have Valanciunas, who's a big body down there. They're not going to get pushed around, which is something you've seen some problems with. And great passer. And then you have Ibaka, who's a decently athletic 4, can hit corner threes, shoot it out to 25
not
feet.
Really what he used to be on the Thunder, but
no, he's obviously fallen off and. Somewhat, but he doesn't. There. I don't know if he needs to be the 3rd guy on this team.
You can't forget about Ibaka. That's for sure.
No, and he provides a better probably rim protection than Valanciunas does down there.
Yeah, I would agree.
And then I think outside of those guys, you've got the Pistons, who are a new look team. You've got the Bucks, who have Giannis and talent, and then we already talked about the Wizards. But can one of those teams make a move to make another one of those second-round series interesting? Because otherwise, I feel like one of those top three is going to get a decent second round matchup for them. To probably finish it in 5 or 6 games. But if I mean, Blake Griffin's a great player. Andre Drummond's having an unreal season. And then you've got the Bucks who have Giannis, who it seems to be in all likelihood the future.
He is the future of the NBA. I mean, he's the next LeBron, in my opinion.
He has to be. And I mean, everyone said it, but at that length, he does just certain things with basketball.
I really want to address not only is he electric on the court, but we already seen him kind of stem up on social media and off the court as someone who's, who will talk or who will post videos of themselves. And that's what the NBA has kind of become. It's become this circus off the court. You got the Chris Paul, with this clip.
Yeah, I think there's a ridiculous amount of hype around the league.
Yes, a ton of hype off the court too. And Giannis seems to be willing to talk and, to raise his voice to the media and talk and post videos. And so I think he's the future. But with that said, I kind of want to jump into our, one of our segments that we've talked about. Are they qualified? And, talking about Giannis. Is Giannis qualified to be, talked about in the MVP race this year?
I mean, you look at his numbers and you watch a game, and Giannis affects everything. I mean, he's got, above 2 steals, above, he's just under 30 points per game, averaging close to 10 assists, averaging or close to 10 rebounds, and then just over 5 assists, I believe. And he's got baby LeBron numbers, if you will, basically coming in as a 22-year-old in the league.
Yeah.
And so I think you got to talk about it, but at the same time, the Bucks are looking like we talked about. They're outside the conversation in terms of who can win, and Harden and LeBron are not.
And that's very true. And I don't think the Bucks are meeting their expectations. I mean, I don't know about you, but going into this year, I expected the Bucks to be, kind of in. I didn't expect them to be, a top 4 or 5 team, but I expected them to be in the playoffs easily. And Giannis is clearly doing his part, but like you said, you have to kind of at least mention him in the MVP race. So I don't think if you talk about it for a couple of minutes, I think he kind of dropped Giannis's name off there just because of the Bucks not meeting their expectations this year.
Yeah, and it's I mean, that's got to be it. It's the Bucks have fallen off a little bit, and the big question mark for me that I would have given Giannis an out at the beginning of the season for the Bucks was the starting point guard situation was very up in the air, and is Brogdon the guy? What's it going to be? The backcourt as a whole. I mean, Brogdon was obviously rookie of the year, had a good year, but then they dealt with Bledsoe after his whole debacle in Phoenix, and I was like, wow, that's an athletic backcourt that can defend in the East.
This could be a problem.
This could be they match up well with the Celtics, and it just hasn't materialized. And could it change with Jabari Parker coming back off of injury? They've got some interesting stuff going on, but right now, Giannis carrying the team, but just not far enough. And he's got a supporting cast that dwarfs what Russ had last year, and Russ was doing better things at a smaller frame. And I think last year is going to make all writers and voters look at the MVP race differently because it was so unique. But the supporting cast of Giannis, their team should be better. And if he had those numbers and the team was better, throw him right there. But you have Harden, who has his team, like I said earlier, as a number 1 seed.
Yeah, and I mean, and LeBron too, who's, we'll see. But I think at this point, all Giannis is just a freak of nature. He's the future of the NBA, and he's something that we should look forward to in the future. As of right now, I don't think he's really MVP caliber just because of how his team's going. With that said, that sounds a lot like, somebody in NCAA that we're hearing a lot about.
Yeah, I mean, who hasn't heard of Trae Young at this point? He, again, labeled as if Giannis is the future LeBron, who's Trae Young, Sonny? The future Steph Curry, right? So
I've heard it again and again and again.
Yeah, a certain network likes to kind of harp on that a lot, I think. But, I mean, at this point, I don't know how many they've lost now in conference and been the Big 12, and they're still a tournament team. Too many, exactly. But Trae Young's putting up probably even more absurd numbers than Giannis in comparison to what we've seen historically. Do you think Young should still be talked about in the national conversation of player.
I will say this: we've seen what Giannis is doing before. Don't get me wrong; he's special. We've seen what he's doing before, though. We have never, ever seen what Trae Young is doing at the NCAA level. I mean, I don't know. Is he still leading the league in points and assists?
I believe he's still got the Big 12 lead in both those. Yeah.
I mean, this dude is just incredible. Oklahoma, I have been saying for about a month now, I think they're getting bounced in the second or third round of the tourney. They don't strike me as a Final Four team.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what they are currently in like a Lunardi bracket, but I could see them first round, to be honest. Like they're that kind of team. When you're that one dimensional, like if they run into a
well coached
lengthy guard who can just lock up Trae, or a well coached team, or you can run it. There's so many college basketball teams you can run into crazy defensive schemes in that first round.
With that said, to answer your question you asked earlier, I absolutely think Trae Young should be talked about in the Player of the Year award. I think that he's hands down, not even close, the best player in college basketball. Oklahoma has a winning record. They've been ranked all year long. So with that said, I think Trae Young's the best player in NCAA basketball, hands down. I think he deserves Player of the Year award. What do you think?
I think it was a no-brainer a month ago to me. That Trae Young is, I mean, he's electric. He's fun to watch. He's in, I think, what a lot of people would make a pretty compelling argument for the best conference in college basketball. I think it's right up there with the ACC this year. That being said, there's a lot of talent. I think Bridges at Villanova is one name that I look at who has really been important to his team. He's an older guy, which voters love. He's been around the block, and he's affecting the game on both ends of the floor. He's a great defender. I think he's ready to be a wing defender in the NBA already. And so Trae Young doesn't bring that to the side, and that's just one name that I've heard talked about. I think you have to keep him in the conversation. His numbers are absurd. Does he deserve the title? I think some people want to hand him the title. I don't know.
I don't know. I do think there's a difference between college. I mean, there's absolutely a comparison as far as Giannis and Trae Young goes, as far as the future and putting up great numbers with their team not going well. But I just think it's a lot different in college because Trae Young's far and away the best and most elite player. Does he make his team that much better? I'm not really sure because it's so obvious. You know where the ball's going in crunch time. You know he's pulling up from 3 feet or this, that, the other thing. I mean, he's pretty unpredictable, but
and the amazing thing is they still can't stop it.
Yeah, that is true. So with that said, I have to say I think he's Player of the Year.
There have been teams that have controlled it, but he's still,
you can't stop him
every game, win or lose. Trae Young putting up numbers, which at the end of the day, that's a big percentage of some more than others, but that's going to get you votes. I think we've got a lot to look forward to going forward the rest of the year in both college and pro. I think the All-Star weekend being more successful has me even more excited for the rest of the NBA season. Obviously, if you're a basketball fan and you don't get excited as the calendar years march, probably don't deserve to call yourself a fan. And anything else I'm looking forward to the rest of the way?
I'm so looking forward to March. I think this is going to be one of the best March Madness years we've seen in years past. You don't know who's going to come out on top. With that said, this is From the Balcony with Sonny and Sam. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for tuning in.